Well, with me now from the Yes Scotland campaign is Gail Lithgow, who is originally from Essex, and in our Edinburgh studio from Better Together is Anya O'Shea, who is half Polish and half Welsh. Thank you both very much indeed for joining us. Gail Lithgow, some people in the Borders have particular concerns about Scottish independence because of proximity to the border. How do you allay those fears?
Well, it's doing precisely what the First Minister did today. It is going to speak to them, and we've got a very big grassroots movement in Yes Scotland with a lot of activists out there that are empowered to answer the questions: what would happen to cross-border taxation, what would happen to cross-border pensions, how would this work? And they're very important questions that people in the south of Scotland have. I mean, my mum grew up in Annan as well, so we've got kind of family connections with the Borders, and a lot of the time they feel very distinct from, in the Borders, both sides of the Borders feel very distinct from London and from Edinburgh, and really the benefits of a yes vote for them are that the decision-making power about what would affect them, what really matters, is taken by those that understand the needs of people that live there.
Anya O'Shea, Alex Salmond has said tonight that the economic and social union with the rest of the UK, with an independent Scotland, would continue.
I mean, that can't really be the case, can it? Because once you start putting a mark in the ground and erecting a border that isn't there at the moment, you are creating a division that isn't necessary. The recent social attitudes survey showed that people in Scotland and England and seemingly the rest of the UK really share values, and there isn't that many differences between us. So why start creating them unnecessarily?
Why start creating them unnecessarily, Gail?
I 100% believe the only people that are talking about divisions or about borders are the No campaign. That we don't envisage any of these things, and in fact I think that's a fundamental flaw in the No campaign's argument, because they talk about a border between of England and Scotland, but their border then just ends at Portsmouth or Liverpool or somewhere else. They just have a British border instead. And our campaign and many people that support the campaign are on a much bigger vision than any of this divisive talk.
Anya O'Shea, is Better Together that's talking about borders and division?
I mean, absolutely not. Like, Better Together, it's in the name, isn't it? We're better together, we're united, we're stronger that way. To say that the No campaign are the ones talking about borders is, I have to say, quite nonsensical, really, when it's the Yes campaign who are really trying to build one. We're not saying that there's going to be some form of controls or whatever, but there will be a distinct nation or country which already exists, and Scotland already has a wonderful culture and is doing amazing things throughout the rest of the world. But it also has the strength and opportunity provided by being part of a really strong union, which would be absolutely lost.
Gail, the latest ICM opinion poll out at the weekend put support for independence amongst English-born people living in Scotland at 28%. Can you understand the reluctance of some of that group of people to vote yes? Is it a question of national identity, a conflict of identity?
I think a lot of them have a very similar opinion to what my dad was like when he first moved to Scotland 20 plus years ago, and he at first didn't understand this case for Scottish independence, and he has since, from living in Scotland, from experiencing Scottish life, Scottish communities, understanding their needs, has seen that this debate has got nothing to do with identity. This debate is entirely to do with democracy. It's entirely to do with making sure that there's economic conditions which create equality and create a fairer and more prosperous nation for everyone that lives and works here.
Anya, it's all about democracy, not identity.
It absolutely is about democracy, and which is why it's so great that we have a Scottish Parliament, one which is going to be receiving more powers in the coming years, and all the parties which have signed up, for a no vote are all arguing for even further devolution powers after that. So it is about democracy. That's the best thing. People living in Scotland are able to vote in both the Westminster elections and in the Holyrood elections, and have, a greater say in what happens over a far greater landmass.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when I vote at Westminster, in Scotland, and for me and for many people in Scotland, you've only got two options. And in Scotland, you vote Labour to keep the Conservatives out. Now, to me, that's not proper democracy. You're voting for one, you've only got one option in order to keep the bad ones out, and that's how it's perceived. So to me, that's not democracy. In Scotland, we have a real opportunity to have a much more democratic to have a much more democratic parliament, and for the powers to become even more local, so that places like the Borders, places like the Highlands and Islands have got a settlement that's appropriate, a settlement that makes sense. And the reason why it makes sense for decisions to be made, all political decisions to be made in Scotland, is because the people in Scotland understand the needs of the community. They understand what is appropriate, and it allows swifter decision making and more immediate decision making.
And we'll have to leave it there. Thank you both for joining us on Scotland Tonight.
Thank you.